So the third eye hug. How do you do it systematically? How do you progress into it systematically? To me, it's just a matter of gaining a lot of practice to develop what's called the sensory acuity in your third eye. I won't go into the complex stuff and the nitty-gritties of the benefits, although just know that it ticks a ton of boxes, and it also makes you less scared of the most negative stuff, because you know that as long as the person's soul exists, which in my view of the world it always does, it never goes away, you will always have access to using the energy lines of universal human gestures on the memory of the person, at least. As assuming that you don't gain access to the astral realm and beyond life stuff, which might just enable you to interact with the person after life, although I don't know. I don't know. One of the reasons why these universal gestures, these power poses, these power movements, these things, one of the most important features, there are two hugely important features to them, in my perspective, which make them so valuable. Actually, let's go three ridiculously important features, which means that if you're fueled up, you can train them, and after you train them, even if you're not fueled up, I still think you could do this, unless you literally just get part of your brain or part of your breathing apparatus removed. The first one is you can use your breathing to neurologically force you into the emotional movement and the state that you need in order to accomplish this. That's really important because there are 3.2 million people who aren't able to move very much, and the main thing they're able to do is to breathe a bit. Only a bit. So even they could train this. A bit. The second one is the idea of neurological force. Because these gestures, movements, and power poses, power movements are universal, and if you position your body in certain ways to access these certain states, you'll literally force yourself, with the intention to get into the state, into the emotional state, which is really important, because especially with the third foundation of it being a universal gesture, which means that there's a specific energy line that runs throughout your system that, regardless of what you've been through, even if a body part's removed, the energy line is still going to be there. It might just be rerouted, so you'll have to have a bit more customization and a bit more practice in order to get it down. Probably a lot more practice, because you need to teach your body to cope in order to use the energy line, although still you could, and I have been, like, you can just use the resources that when you're barely energized at all, you can use resources which are evolutionarily designed to have, almost regardless of what situation you're in. And you can force yourself into training what I'm about to be telling you. Which means that almost regardless of the situation that you're in, you can basically improve your relationship with yourself and with other people at the soul level, and therefore also because you get what you resonate with, you're going to only be absorbing, accessing energies you're open to, only energies you're open to. You can only receive energies that you're open to pretty much instantaneously. Like, it's going to be quite difficult to not absorb the right energies here. And what was number 3? The other part of this was because you're only going to be using the energies of your peak state. There's a bit more advantages, although just this one. Because we're facing a battle right now, to say the least. You want to have not only the max protection against the bad stuff, you also just don't want to be involved with it either. That's one of the main advantages of peak state emotions, because you are not very likely, or at least the least likely, to get yeeted by someone else's energy when you're in a peak state. And that's common sense, isn't it? I've just taken it to the extreme level. Because if you get the energy lines of these movements and all this stuff, then you can transfer it between people, which I've done at a distance. Like Clayton and Nathan have joyfully and perhaps even mesmerizingly experienced, not even exaggerating. So, now that I've gotten enough practice at it, what it feels like with the basic gesture of universal acceptance, which is a hug. And because it's a gesture of universal acceptance, it means that you can do it with anyone, and if they don't accept you whatsoever, then you're gonna know. If they don't resonate with you, you're gonna know. And none of their parasites can really touch you in the practice. At least through the practice. Wind, wow. And the practice of these, if you've been wronged by giving too much and taking not as much as you wanted, or nothing, less than nothing, if you've been really hurt by that, these practices feel like they restore the give-take balance, and you'll feel amazing often. You'll often feel amazing when you do them. So, what the hug, obviously, the hug obviously just is an external and internal feeling, so it doesn't cover all of the sense systems. When I'm doing it, it feels like I'm breathing in until I hug the person, and I hug them tightly. I imagine hugging them tightly. I clench and hug them, and then I bring in the energy of the hug with an exhale, and I basically hug my third eye. And then I absorb everything that I've took in with my third eye into my system, and that's where the feeling of actually hugging a person comes in. And so you'll come to accepting part of yourself that you don't know about unless you do it with a specific energy ball. and you'll come to terms of acceptance with the other person too. And I'll keep them going because the next one is simple too. The other one you might be able to find it on the Sonic the Hedgehog and Amy the Hedgehog advertisement material. This is the universal hug is to me, like, you can use it for a lot. It's to me not as pleasurable because it's a healing one. If this one's a way to really up the ante in the love relationship. Actually, you know what? I will put it. I'll put it in another video. See you, beautiful souls.